first thing I do want to say is that I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm a Canadian. And so I will probably insult both sides before the end of my presentation. One of the things that we know is that leadership presence is very important in political outcomes. But the question is, can nonverbal behavior predict election outcomes? We believe that it can. And so what we were able to do is, actually before we get there, let's take a look at these two pictures, two presidents from Illinois. When Abraham Lincoln was president, people voted based on what they felt about the words. Now that President Obama is here, people vote more aptly on how they feel about the images. That was our feeling, and that's what we believe today. This is a map of our predictions from 2010. We were able to predict 35 of the 37 gubernatorial races based on an algorithm that we developed over a number of years. First, what we did was we looked at all the televised presidential debates, and we saw patterns between winners, whether they were Republican or Democrat. So then we went back and we did the same thing with over 100 gubernatorial debates that took place over the last 10 years. And then we went live in 2010 and predicted our predictions with a 95% accuracy on an average of 6 weeks out from the election. Now, we've since partnered with the University of Wisconsin, and they are validating our algorithm. And in doing so, some interesting things have come up. One of the things is that over time, in the last 10 years, our predictions have become more and more accurate. And the reason for that, we believe, is social media and being able to get the news when you want it, where you want it, and being able to view political candidates. One argument people often come up against what we're doing is that, we're just following the polls. Well, here's an example in 2010. We compared ourselves against the 7 most reputable, we felt were the most reputable at the time, national polling firms. Not one predicted that the Democrat would win Illinois. We predicted it on the 6th of October, never switched our prediction, and we were proven right on Election Day. What do we measure? Well, we measure 3 things. We measure the appearance of the candidates, we measure the environment that they're in, and also their nonverbal or body language. Primarily, we look at a thin slice of the candidates in the debate, but we also look at how they are throughout the campaign, and in some instances where there aren't debates, we'll look at interviews. For example, in Texas in 2010, there were no debates, but there were 2 one-hour interviews that were televised by the Texas Tribune. And so let's take a look at appearance. Does anybody know what a community organizer looks like? You must, Betsy, right? So there you go. Now, what's a president look like? Hold on a second. Now, there we go. And so you'll never see the president, I believe, wearing the gray-on-gray tie or the jacket that is not tailored. But what you will find is he'll wear the darker suits, the white shirts or light blue shirts, and the tie will actually be the message that they're going to want to deliver. And for different reasons, color evokes emotion, and so when they're unconsciously trying to deliver a message, they will use these colors. For example, when the president and Hillary Clinton met for the first time after he secured the nomination, you'll see that her outfit matches his tie because they want to use that color to persuade the audience that they're on the same page. The first time that the president met with his predecessor, President Bush, they both had the similar tie, unconsciously to signal to the world that we're on the same page, this is going to be a smooth transition, you probably don't want to mess with us. Here, it was interesting that during the healthcare debates and when they were trying to pass healthcare, many Republicans were wearing pink ties, and Republicans wear the same ties over and over again, but people weren't picking up on it consciously. Here, people have asked me about the debate, whether they called each other the other night before the second debate. I don't think so, but I think what it does indicate is that what they're trying to do is they're trying to appeal to women voters. And people have talked about the fact that that's what this race has become about. And so you even see the president here wearing the pink armband, and you see that Governor Romney's surrogates on the Sunday and Monday shows wearing pink ties. And even yesterday, you'll see Paul Ryan wearing a pink tie. And so the idea is that these messages, there's two types of campaigns. There's the one we consciously see, and there's the one that we unconsciously see. And the one that we unconsciously see is often more influential and persuasive. So it's interesting about people often say, well, what color tie is the president going to wear to the State of the Union? I have no idea, but I can tell you what it means afterwards. But I would guess that Joe Biden will wear a striped tie, right? Because a striped tie shows deference to the leader. So let's say that we have 3 presidents, a current president and 2 ex-presidents. You're going to see that the ex-presidents are going to wear the striped tie, and the current president is going to wear the solid tie. Now, on a more humorous note, let me ask you this question. Let's say that you are resigning a gubernatorial office. How would you dress? Would you dress like this? Would you choreograph the situation? Would your wife wear pearls to show innocence and a light blue outfit? And let's pretend you were in a neighboring state resigning for a very similar reason. What would happen? The same outfit, because they're thinking about their rehabilitation as they're going down. And these are the images that will allow them to head on that path to rehabilitation. We really like the women in the Senate. Republican or Democrat, any woman that makes it to the U.S. Senate is an amazing leader. But I want you to notice a couple of things that you have here. Not one of them has hair on their forehead or their neck. Because hair on the forehead and neck, which most men do not have, or covering the neck, I apologize. Hair on the neck. Yeah, they don't have hair on the neck, no. But the covering the neck or the forehead, so that shows that they have nothing to hide, right? It indicates there's really nothing there, they're not hiding anything. Not that people are, that are covering their foreheads, but these are unconscious indicators. Now here, what I want you to notice, and we got the frame is a little off here. But around, and we're going to, actually, that was appearance, we're looking at environment now. And this is President Obama talking about healthcare in Iowa a couple of years ago. And what you notice there is the people around him are perfectly ethnically weighted to the people that he's speaking to. So you've got children and elderly people and minorities, and that's who are most affected by that. Now, let's go to next week, to last week, I apologize. And after that debate, as we know, it was all about women. So when the president is appearing, he's going to appear with women around him, right? It's not haphazard that they just say, okay, well, the people go up, as I'm sure you're aware. I feel a little small right now, but here you can see in the Oval Office, you see President Bush with pictures of his family around him in the back, the gold drapes for prestige, right, and the solid tie. President Obama, the same thing. In fact, every president of the television age, you're going to see a very similar background in the environment. Now, there's one president in the television age who had some issues about showing his family because it wouldn't necessarily be a transparent message. So instead, he had books and busts of ex-presidents and one family picture. Anybody guess who that might be? And you can see the tie, too, which is similar to the one before. I told you I would ding both sides and insult everybody eventually. So we know that words convey reason, but body language conveys instinct and emotion. And that's what we read, because we make our decisions based on instinct and emotion and then justify them with reason. And so if we look at both Republican and Democratic candidates who win, you will find that whether a Republican like Scott Brown or a Democrat like the president, they're going to use the same gestures to deliver their message. And one of the interesting things that we found, I spoke about it earlier, was when we originally started this, was that we looked at these, what we call positive behaviors. And we noticed that we weren't necessarily as accurate in our predictions. And so we started looking then at what we would classify as negative, more unconscious behaviors. And we weight those much more heavily in making our predictions. here, friend of yours, I'm sure, when you, sorry, I keep bringing if you're on stage and people have an inclination to create some sort of barrier because they feel vulnerable. And this is not what you want. You probably want to put your hands behind your back. Or if you want to be more aggressive, you might want to do this, like Rahm Emanuel. One of the things that we also have noticed that aggressiveness, it works very well in campaigns, or even negative messages work well in campaigns, but not by the leader, by their surrogates. When the leader does it, it leaks certain what we would call negative nonverbal behavior that we would score against the candidate. And so where would Rahm Emanuel get this type of stance from? Oh. Now, one of the interesting things that most people don't know is that he lost his middle finger when he was younger, and I've been told that it took him 6 months to learn to communicate again. Yeah. So predictions, I don't want to give we're doing predictions around the country. If anybody wants to talk about predictions at the break, I'd be happy to talk to anybody one-on-one or as a group. But for the purpose of this presentation, we're not going to necessarily go into that today. One of the things that we want to look at is in terms of in 2010, there were two big stories. There was the Chilean mine disaster, and there was the BP oil spill. Now, these two gentlemen, one is Sebastian Pinera, who's the president of Chile, and the other is Tony Hayward, who was the CEO of BP. And so we believe that based on the behavior of these two gentlemen, the perceived outcome of these events is what their behavior drove the perceived outcome. And so if we look at what winning politicians know, if we look at Sebastian Pinera showing up at the event where these miners, they don't know if they're alive, they're in the ground, he's wearing his suit, somber face, gray tie. They find out they're alive. He's sitting there, he's got his sleeves rolled up, he's got the people around him who are perfectly ethnically weighted. And then you see him giving a press conference where he's open, showing his palms, he has nothing to hide. And at the end of the day, he's off with the miners into the future. Now, compare that with BP. The day after the event, or day or two after the event, this is the guy who ran the rig and Tony Hayward standing there laughing with a high confidence gesture, which really is not the image that I would think that they would want to express. Then you see here Tony Hayward, nobody around him, with his elbow up, which would suggest not that he has an itchy neck, but that this is a little emotionally uncomfortable for him. And then you see him with his sleeves down, covering, not feeling very confident, giving a press conference, which would then lead to him leaving his congressional testimony not necessarily the way he would like to. Now, as I said, my belief is that had these two gentlemen switched positions and their teams, the perceived outcome would have been much different. The miners will have been in the ground too long. Oh, well, geez, they're cleaning up. They put $20 billion into a fund. So what I want to leave you with is 3 questions. 1, if Bill Clinton was the Democratic nominee running against Mitt Romney, how many people think Bill Clinton would win? Okay. If Bill Clinton was the Republican nominee and Mitt Romney was the Democratic nominee, how many people think Bill Clinton would win? Okay, so then the last question is, how important are parties over the candidates to independent voters? And so that's something to think about. Thank you very much.